Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pontoon Reimagine Now, the nexus where progressive thought leaders in human resources and executive management converge to explore the forefront of workforce dynamics. I'm your host, Shannon Robertson, Director of Strategic Insights at Pontoon, and today's episode promises to be an enlightening addition to our series. In our rapidly evolving digital landscape, the confluence of social media and human capital represents a paradigm shift in organizational strategy and leadership. No longer mere platforms for socialization, these digital arenas are emerging as influential tools in shaping corporate identity, talent acquisition, and employee engagement models. We're honored today to have the opportunity to engage with Brandon Mina, CEO of ZedMoto Media, and Vanessa Guerrero-Peters, Vice President of Customer and Partner Success, both esteemed figures in influence marketing, standing at the vanguard of integrating social media strategies with human capital development and offering unique perspective on how these platforms are redefining the essence of workforce management and corporate branding. In today's dialogue, we'll delve into the nuanced implications of social media in talent management, dissect its role in fostering an inclusive and dynamic organizational culture, and address the ethical dimensions inherent in this digital interplay, all while forecasting the trajectories of social media's influence in the corporate sphere and its potential to revolutionize employee interaction and corporate learning. So let's embark on this insightful journey with Brandon and Vanessa. It's a privilege to welcome you both here today.
Thanks for having us, Shannon.
It's my pleasure. So let's dive in. And I'll direct my first question to you, Brandon. Sure. Given your experience, can you share insights on how influencer marketing, particularly on social media platforms, has impacted the way companies approach talent acquisition and recruitment?
Yeah, for sure. I think, ultimately we're seeing a strategic shift where recruitment is synonymous with brand building. Companies are curating their public personas on social platforms, ensuring that their mission and culture resonate with a much broader audience. And this isn't just about tapping into a talent pool. It's really about creating an aspirational brand that top talent naturally gravitates towards. Picture this, we're currently living in a world where talent acquisition is no longer confined to the traditional job posting boards. Companies like Intuit are redefining recruitment by leveraging their own team members, like influencers like Emily Durham, who is a senior recruiting specialist over at Intuit, and she's highly active on TikTok. And I think it just allows Intuit to offer an authentic glimpse into the corporate life, and how potential employees can interact with that level of authenticity. This is truly influencer marketing at its finest, right? It turns everyday recruitment into an engaging narrative. We're also seeing this over at TikTok, where they're transforming the mundane resume into a much more dynamic video showcase that captures the professional prowess of job seekers. And let's not overlook how Netflix is harnessing the clout of industry influencers to catch up to cast a much wider net for their hiring needs. So ultimately, as we discuss the future of work and how companies approach talent acquisition and recruitment, it's important and it's clear to understand that influencers are becoming an integral part of the hiring landscape. They serve as a conduit between the company's ethos and the aspirations of potential candidates. It's a fresh, dynamic approach to human capital, where every tweet, every post, and every share is an invitation to be part of something much bigger.
That's really interesting. I've always sort of loosely understood, I guess, how these platforms were evolving the talent landscape through sort of marketing and encouraging creative thought and expression, but I didn't appreciate so much the impact that they are or could have at sort of redefining recruitment. And I think what you said there about Intuit and having this very interactive way of showcasing the company's very interesting and unique. As you explained, influencer marketing is not just a tool for product promotion anymore, but becoming sort of a key strategy in shaping how companies are perceived by employers. So with that in mind, I'm kind of interested to hear from you both about the broader implications of these trends. How do you see or have you seen influencer marketing playing a role in shaping employer branding and company culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I think influencers within an organization can sort of be your coolest colleagues that are sort of spilling the beans about what it's really like to work there. They're the folks that are giving you the behind the scenes tour, from the quirky office traditions to those big mission moments that make everybody in an organization proud. It's no longer a typical job ad. It's a real story being told in real time. And I think companies, when they partner with influencers, internal and external, they're not just posting a job opening anymore. They're throwing open the doors and they're saying, "Hey, this is us," and we're awesome to work with. It's genuine, it's relatable, and it totally transforms the way people see a company. More importantly, I think it can turn a brand into a place where people don't just want to work, but they ultimately want to belong.
Hmm.
And you've definitely seen those sort of a day in the life of ex-employee of such and such company, and you see the espresso machine and the snacks and the this and the that and the team building events and all the sorts of things that they do. And it's nice to have a nice line written into a job posting, but to actually see it lived out, and that it's not just lip service, that they actually live these values that they state that they have. It's much more impactful than ever before.
Yeah, and I really like what you guys hit on, the sense of belonging. I think there's so much that we're hearing now around mental health awareness and people's desire to really belong to something. And so seeing, yeah, not just the lip service, but seeing companies really showcase that what they say they do, I think is an excellent approach. I haven't seen job postings so interactive, but I think it is a really creative way to showcase a company. Would you say that there are other future developments or trends like this that influencer marketing that HR professionals should be aware of or incorporate as they plan for their human capital strategies?
Yeah, I think ultimately, they say a picture's worth a thousand words. A video or an interactive job posting is probably worth a million words in that case, right? So, I think in the sphere of influencer marketing, there's an emerging appreciation for nuanced influencers of micro and nano sizes. So, these individuals boast deeply engaged audiences. Um, you know, they offer much more resonance and much more engagement than some of their bigger celebrity counterparts. It's a compelling development for HR professionals seeking authentic connections with potential talent, right? I think if you can recruit using an influencer, that's definitely going to open some doors. Using influencer marketing and social media also allows you the ability to sort of hyper target an audience. So if you're looking for more diversity or you're looking for more um, of a single particular skill set, the ability to use influencer marketing in the recruitment stage, it gives you the ability to sort of hyper target a particular audience or a particular skill set. And on the frontier of technology, AI is obviously poised to refine this synergy between influencers and organizations. And I think the evolution ultimately promises a future where alignment between an influencer and their ethos and a company's culture is not really left to chance, but it can be meticulously curated, which I think a lot of organizations are very much interested in. Borrowing the social capital that an influencer on a micro or nano scale might have, and just creating a meticulously curated brand. It's an insightful blend of humanity and technology sort of coming together to steer the future of recruitment.
That's interesting. And, as technology evolves and has become more and more accessible, I've noticed so many more people entering this sort of influencer sphere, especially since COVID. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was probably in large part because it was used as a tool to sort of escape or to dream about, something different than the confines of the walls that we were all stuck in for those years. So I'm wondering.
And TikTok became emerging around the same
Absolutely.
time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it highlighted chances for us to have fun and interact with people from far away. It really built this sense of community. I'm wondering if this trend continues, and I imagine it will, how can organizations leverage this to enhance their human capital development and talent retention strategies with so many more people now wanting to become influencers?
Yeah, so I mean, I always think of there's a particular tech recruiter, and she's out of Toronto where I am, and she does a phenomenal job. And it's not even that she says, I'm from company whatever. She just gives tips and tricks if you want to get into tech, if you're a new grad, if you're trying to change industries. And she just makes a lot of thought leadership content, and she has a huge follower base of people that just really trust her. And occasionally people say, well, what company do you work for? And she'll say it, but she's not, I'm representing them and this is my objective. It's, hey, I'm a leader in this industry and I know a lot and I want to share that with you. And because of that, it's built a very good sort of impression for this company that sponsors her or that's her employer, because you think, A, they're letting her do this, they're letting her have this platform to demonstrate her skill, but then also these are the type of people that they have employed at this company. So it just bodes well for them to allow their people to be thought leaders on these platforms for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's, oh, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, Shannon, I think ultimately, organizations have to try to empower their workforce to be open in a way that, is not always conducive to the way things used to be. I think it's new. It's a much newer approach for an organization to get their human capital to, share things openly, share things honestly. And I think when you can give them a sense of ownership, or you can give your staff a sense of ownership, you unknowingly increase their job satisfaction. And this approach not only aids in retaining talent, but it also turns employees into brand ambassadors. And they can then go out and attract similar-minded professionals to your organization. So, ultimately by empowering your own employees and providing them a platform to share their successes and insights, it can foster a culture of recognition and continuous learning while boosting, internal job satisfaction.
Yeah. And I guess those are all the positives of companies allowing their sort of employees to promote themselves online and, and as you said, increase job satisfaction and all of that. But do you think that or how would a company navigate if, someone's out there promoting maybe more of a negative feel to the company? How do companies then navigate the negative side of social media?
Yeah, I mean, with anything, if there's an employee that's saying negative things about your company, then that's something you have to address, right? So there's something, I would take that as a positive at the end of the day. It's like when you take surveys, you don't just say, hey, we're great. You say, hey, these are areas that we can improve upon, and then you action them. And then maybe you have that person, or you allow them to say, like, these are the things that they've done for this to be improved. Or even if they don't, it'll just naturally happen because you've taken the steps to address the shortcomings as a company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that's the best way to go about it, is to acknowledge that no company is ever perfect, and there's gaps in places that we can learn. And often that's when there's challenges that people are overcoming, those are where the gaps are that we can identify areas for improvement. You both mentioned authenticity and personal branding as being crucial. So how can employees look to use social media to authentically represent skills and talents that potential employers or clients could be looking for?
I mean, it's always about being honest. I think if there's something that you're really good at or you're passionate about, you create the content. And that's the beauty of something like TikTok. It doesn't have to be this, manicured, polished video that you create in a studio. It's something that you could do really quickly from your phone and talk about the things that you're interested in and engage with your audience and things like that. And you become a thought leader and you get sort of traction in the industry. And that's sort of the beauty of it.
Yeah, and it's not just about being seen. It's also just about being a part of the conversation, right? I think ultimately, for an individual employee, I think of social media as sort of your personal billboard, right? If you're looking to impress potential employers or clients, it's all about showing what you do best and leaning into that. and sharing snippets of your project, writing about what you've learned, or even just a quick post about a problem that you've recently solved. It's like keeping your resume live and kicking, right? With updates on your latest wins or the conferences that you've attended or the things that you've learned. And I think just taking part in that conversation is incredibly effective in regards to bringing out your own personal authenticity. And it's important not to forget to mix in a bit of your own personal story and to give color to your professional skills. And it just makes you much more than just another profile or just another resume or just another candidate, right? So I think ultimately just trying to engage in the conversation that's being had on social media, that certainly weighs in your favor.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, you've brought that to life for me, a sort of personal live portfolio of all the things
Yeah.
that you can do. I can visualize it. And that also makes me think of some other important aspects that companies and individuals are navigating predominantly, in the last couple of years, I would say, uh, around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I'm wondering how influencer marketing and that landscape has evolved in terms of DE&I, and what are some of the implications that this has for companies looking to build more diverse workforces.
Yeah, I think, social media has done a phenomenal job at giving a voice to minority groups that otherwise wouldn't be seen or heard. So I think that there's that. And now, I mean, there's visibility to companies. So it's not just, we say that we have a mission. Let's see it. Let's see who are the
Mhm.
people representing your company. And so they have to fulfill those mission statements.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, ultimately the influencer marketing scene has really started to look like a mosaic of different faces, stories, and backgrounds. And, it's not just about adding color, it's about weaving a whole new fabric that reflects the real world, right? And, companies are now spot on about teaming up with influencers from diverse backgrounds because it sends a much more powerful message, which is ultimately, we're for everyone, right? The shift isn't just good PR, it's smart business, right? And when a company's workforce is as varied as its customer base, I think everybody wins, and it's like having a secret key, to reaching markets far and wide. Showing that diversity through influencers is like holding up a sign that says, come as you are, and we've got a place for you, and it invites talent from all over the spectrum to want in on the action. And like I said earlier, what organization wouldn't want a part of that, right? In being able to hyper target a skill set or a particular segment of the talent pool that is just going to help to diversify and build out that cultural mosaic and that whole new fabric, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. There's just so much supporting research that confirms diverse teams bring together a wide range of perspectives and experiences and problem-solving approaches. So it's so important for a company to really make up that cultural fabric.
Absolutely.
And so I guess this leads me to my next question. Taking a step back, can you share examples of how influencer marketing has been successful at integrating into HR practices such as employee branding or onboarding, training, and internal communications?
Yeah, I think we've already spoken a little bit about how the recruitment has been changed, but I would also say the onboarding and the training side of things have also seen a shift. I think training programs are getting a makeover and they're becoming much more interactive, and they're using the personalities within the organization to do that level of training, right? And companies might create a series of welcome videos that feature employees who share their own personal experiences and tips that help them ramp up much quicker. And if you look at that, trend, it's very much on par with what influencers do. It's a fresh take that helps new hires feel right at home, right? It gives them the ability, like I said earlier, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video might be worth 1,000,000. At the end of the day, if you can find a way to incorporate this into your onboarding or some of your some of the early internal communications that a new hire will have, I think they can find themselves ramping up much quicker. And these approaches are not, they not only make the information more relatable, but they also foster a sense of community and belonging among the employees, right? Anyone who's in one of those onboarding videos, if you see them at the water cooler, you're going to feel much more inclined to say hello, or you'll sort of have that impression that you already know them, right? So I think that's one of the ways that they can take some of the pieces of influencer marketing and move it into some of the internal onboarding practices and some of the internal training practices that an organization has.
Yeah, and especially as more and more companies are working remotely, onboarding remotely can feel quite lonely. So having a face to some of the onboarding materials really does give it that sort of human touch that we're missing a lot now when we work remotely.
Absolutely.
And so if we think about it, and all of the changes that are happening so rapidly in this landscape, are there ethical considerations or challenges that arise when employees or companies engage with influencer marketing on social media? And if so, how can some of these issues be addressed?
I mean, I don't know if you'd want to call it ethical, but it really, at the end of the day, it does require some vetting. So if we're not talking about, or even, I mean, if it is internal as well, but you really need to do a deep dive into who that person is and what they represent. So no, don't just look at the channel that they might post on, but take a good look at who they are and how they represent themselves online, because they're representing you. So that's something you really need to pay attention to. You really need to do your vetting before you would consider using an influencer for your own internal stuff.
Yeah, and I think when you mix influencer marketing with human resources, you've got to navigate some pretty tricky waters, right? There's the whole transparency thing, making sure followers know what's sponsored content and what's not sponsored content. Then there's just there's keeping it real, right? Ensuring the influencers are genuinely able to vibe with the company's ethos, so that it doesn't come off as a paid gig, or it's not inauthentic to that influencer's audience. So I think transparency is a big piece, right? The second piece that I would, encourage organizations to look into is the privacy side of things, right? I think in respecting employee boundaries when they become a part of the campaign, and that's critical, right? Companies can tackle these by being upfront about partnerships and choosing influencers who are a natural fit, like Vanessa said, to vet them and ensure that you have clear policies in place on how employee data is being used. And in the end, it's really just about keeping things honest and keeping things respectful. But there's certainly a balance there that needs to be had in regards to influencer marketers working with human resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that sort of highlights another sort of topic that I think about often, which is when you're on Twitter or Instagram, you have very small space that you can communicate. So you have to limit your word count and all of that. And so I wonder, does social media or the use of social media affect workplace culture and communication within an organization? Or have you seen that?
I think it's a great question. I think, for sure you have to be able to take a look at what's going on internally. And I think we're all looking for ways to improve, A, the speed of the communication that we have internally, but also B, the quality of the communication that we have internally, right? So I'm not sure I've seen a specific example of, bringing an influencer for that. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a tremendous benefit to being able to do this in regards to onboarding, training, as well as internal collaboration and communication, right? So the one thing I will say in regards to that, you often see them at the much larger sort of enterprise conferences that happen for large companies. They'll often bring in an influencer or somebody to sort of act as the MC or the facilitator of the communication. So, I think by being able to use influencers in that way, or, personalities in that way, to just, I think, facilitate or kick off the conversation internally is an incredibly useful thing. And we should certainly be paying attention to that.
Hmm. And do you think that there are any kinds of drawbacks for an employee engaging with influencer marketing on their own personal social media accounts, especially in relation to their professional lives?
I mean, the reality of it is that you're going to have to keep it PG,
Hmm.
right? You have to be really cognizant of the things you say, the people that you interact with, who comments.
Hmm.
You're colliding two different worlds together, and you have to be cognizant of, you want to keep an appropriate sort of presence if you're bringing in your workplace. But I mean, in general, if you want to have a public platform, you should always sort of be cognizant of that,
Hmm.
regardless.
Yeah, be mindful of what you're
Mhm.
saying and how you're saying it.
Yes, exactly. Your digital footprint lasts forever. So,
Yes, that's true.
mhm.
And I guess just one more question, if I may.
Mhm.
And I guess that's for me, it's finding, as I'm finding now, I'm becoming sort of out of touch with some of the latest and greatest in social media and tech advances. And so I'm wondering if there's any insights that you could share into how organizations can help navigate the different generations in the workforce and how they perceive and utilize social media for career advancement or skill development. And then how do companies sort of navigate these large divides?
Yeah, I mean, you'll absolutely see that if you go on Facebook or LinkedIn, it's going to skew older than TikTok, which will skew younger. So there's definitely a Gen Z to Boomer divide between the
Yeah.
the the different platforms. So I mean, how would you gauge? I mean, speak to your employees, see what they're doing. I mean, this all comes across like building a community within your workforce and understand what their interests are and how they convey messages and the platforms that they're on. It's really about, yeah, creating that sense of community to understand.
Yeah, and I think different generations bring their own unique take to social media, right, for their careers. The
Hmm.
younger crowd, like Gen Z, they're digital natives, right? So they're all over trying to build your brand on these types of platforms, and then you've got millennials who are big on networking through LinkedIn, and they'll often even use Facebook to try to climb the corporate ladder. And then there's the Gen X and the Boomers, right? They may be a little bit more traditional, but they're certainly catching up and using these tools for professional development and to stay in the know. I think ultimately each generation's approach gives a fresh angle to career growth as well as skill sharing and skill building, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. It's all about this idea of continuous learning. It's very important that we sort of learn from all the different generations because there's lots that we can take from the older generation that haven't had, technology at their fingertips from the very beginning. And so, because now it's it throws you off. Last week I was out of my laptop for 11 days and I did not know what to do. I felt really thrown because I didn't have access to my computer or any of the knowledge that I have stored on my computer. So it made me pause and think about, the older generation that didn't have laptops and Google and all of that to be able to reference when they need it. Um, well, I've taken a lot of your time today, and I just want to thank you both for joining and sharing such invaluable insights into the interplay of social media and human capital. Your expertise has undoubtedly shed light on a subject that's becoming increasingly critical in modern business leadership and human resource strategy. To our audience, I want to thank you for joining us on Pontoon Reimagined Now. Today's dialogue has underscored the critical role that social media plays, not just as a tool for marketing, but as a transformative force in the realms of talent acquisition, employee advocacy, and organizational culture. As leaders in your respective fields, the perspectives and strategies discussed today offer a small blueprint for navigating the intricate and ever-evolving dynamics of human capital in a digitalized world. I encourage you to reflect on these insights and consider how they can be integrated into your organizational practices and leadership approaches. We look forward to bringing you thought-provoking content and discussions with more industry pioneers. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will explore another facet of the ever-changing world of human resources and executive leadership. Until then, don't forget to check us out on social media at Pontoon Solutions. I'm Shannon Robertson, wishing you innovative thinking and strategic foresight in all your endeavors. Thanks for listening, and have a wonderful day.